Okay, whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Keith Thompson, the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs in the College of Engineering. Today, Dr. Marlena Lester, who is the college's Director of Advising, and myself are going to talk to you about joining the College of Engineering at Virginia Tech and adjusting to life here. Marlena and I are part of a broad system of student support at Virginia Tech, and we're here to help support you through your time in college. We both want to thank you for choosing Virginia Tech for your college experience. Today's orientation is going to contain a lot of advice you will need on how to be successful in college, and particularly in an engineering program. This presentation is packed full of information, but most things we say today will be reiterated throughout your first year at Virginia Tech, so don't worry if it doesn't all sink in today. Marlena, let's move to the next slide. So Virginia Tech is recognized as an educator of high quality engineering students. There will be high expectations of performance, but you're also going to be offered many opportunities to participate in engineering competition teams, undergraduate research, and to interact with many other students of similar capability and passion as yourself. We admitted you because we think you have the potential to be a successful student here. That doesn't mean, though, that you won't face various struggles adjusting from high school to college life, but that sort of struggle is very common and it's a good opportunity to learn and mature. The other thing to be aware of about the College of Engineering and Virginia Tech is that we're very big. The College of Engineering is going to have almost 10,000 undergraduate students in fall of 2024. That size is what allows us to offer a lot of things that smaller universities are not able to, such as more options for majors and more opportunities for specialized student experiences. However, it can also feel very easy to feel lost with that many students. So understanding how to identify sources of help at Virginia Tech is going to be a very important skill for you to develop. Let's move to the next slide. So I want to talk about engineering expectations. Your experience at Virginia Tech will be different from high school or community college in many different ways. First and foremost, your life management is going to be very different. No one is going to directly monitor you. You're going to have a lot more autonomy to make your own choices, and you will need to master your own time management, study routines, and juggling of your academic responsibilities. At the same time, you're also going to need to solve other types of day-to-day life tasks, such as getting your laundry done, keeping your space in order, eating properly, and managing money, so on. I'm sure some of you are already used to this, but for many, this will be your first time handling so many of these things on your own. In addition to navigating your life, students also need to learn how to navigate the university. And by this, I mean the numerous rules, requirements, and deadlines that are common for a large university. We have rules about academic standards, rules for academic integrity, rules about degree requirements, timelines for adding and dropping classes, changing your major, and other critical matters. We don't grant many exceptions to these rules. You will need to be very conscious about deadlines and plan things to make sure you meet those deadlines. Most deadlines you encounter at Virginia Tech are strictly enforced, whether that's a due date for an assignment, a deadline to apply for an opportunity, or a deadline to take action on a university process such as adding or dropping classes. We also have a large bureaucracy of many different offices and specialized personnel, and that can be very confusing to work with. However, each of you is going to have an academic advisor, and that person will typically be the best first stop for any questions you have. You're going to need to spend a lot of time figuring things out. So it's best if you become your own advocate in working with faculty and other personnel across the university. Most of the faculty and administrators that I know are thoughtful, understanding people, but there will be limits on how much they can bend policy if you have missed a deadline or if you're trying to get something done that isn't traditionally allowed at this university. It's a good thing for you to have to adapt to these types of tasks. As frustrating as it might be at times, if you master these types of things, you're going to come out of college much more ready to live on your own and juggle the routines of life while you're trying to start a career, and that will be good for you. Let's move on to the next slide. I cannot stress enough how much you need to check and read your emails. Your vt.edu email is going to be the official contact method between the university and yourself. Make sure that you check it regularly. During the academic year, we try to help students by sending messages regarding upcoming deadlines and other requirements. Please keep an eye out for these and make sure you read those messages. Do not let the emails we're sending you get assigned to your spam folder. Up until recently, we have been using the email associated with your application for admission. So that might have been a Gmail account, a Hotmail account, or something else. You should have already received instructions on how to set up your vt.edu email by now. If you have not already done so, please do that immediately after this orientation. With all this said, you should not expect immediate responses when you send someone an email or expect to be able to meet with someone if you just drop by without an appointment. All of our advisors work with many students and likely have other tasks that they're responsible for. It's not unusual for them to be fully booked up on a given day. So timeliness and asking questions will be very important. The need for urgency is often not necessary if you are proactively reading the communications that come to you and paying attention to the instructions and deadlines that they contain. Let's go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about classes. Instruction at Virginia Tech may feel very different from the instruction you've had in high school or community college. There's going to be a lot more emphasis on comprehension of foundational theory rather than memorization of formulas or facts and figures. The material may be presented in a less structured manner than what you're used to. There's going to be a higher expectation for you to absorb material with less direction from the instructor, and particularly reading outside of class as something you're going to need to do often, and you're going to need to learn how to be an independent learner. When I first went to college, I did not know how to study at all. I had never really needed to do that very much in high school. You're probably going to be the same. And so in addition to all the material that you're trying to learn that's taught in your classes, you're probably going to have to learn a lot of skills about studying and what works best for you to learn information on your own. You're also going to want to pay close attention to the expectations of instructors and start your assignments early. Like I've said before, many instructors are very rigid on due dates and they don't accept late work. They may expect your work to fit in very specific formatting standards, and they may not give partial credit for incomplete work. Don't wait until the day before due date to begin looking at an assignment. You're also going to want to set aside time each day to review material from your courses, even if you don't have something due later in the week. The typical rule of thumb is 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour that you spend in class. So for a typical 15 credit course load, that's going to be about 15 hours in class each week, plus another 30 to 45 hours outside of class working on assignments or studying. That's more than a full-time job when you add it all up. Let's go to the next slide. I also want to include a special warning here about Chegg, ChatGPT, and other similar resources that you might find online. Virginia Tech has an honor code, and academic misconduct is taken very seriously by the university. Sanctions for academic misconduct can include an F-star grade. That's an F with an asterisk after it. And what that does is it indicates not only that you have a failing grade for an entire class, but that F came because of academic misconduct. This is the most common type of sanction that's imposed by the Office of Undergraduate Academic Integrity. Multiple offenses of academic misconduct can result in suspension or even expulsion from the university. So it's really important that you pay attention to the rules of conduct expected for completing assignments or exams in each of your classes, particularly what's allowed for collaboration with other classmates, or what types of resources you're allowed to use to complete your assignments. These expectations can be different from class to class. Let's go to the next slide. While I want to encourage students to be their own advocates and do things on their own, I'm aware that the bills often get paid by families and that families can be making a significant investment of money, time, and emotional concern in the success of their students. So I want to speak a little bit about how families and students can work constructively together as partners. For the families that are listening in on this, I want you to encourage your student to read their email and meet with their advisor at least once a semester to touch base on their academic plans. Particularly, try to create a safe space for conversations to check in on grades at the end of each semester. Typically, students should try to earn around 15 to 17 credits each semester, and they need to maintain a grade point average that is 2.0 or higher, which is a C average. Not a C minus average, but a C average. For some majors, this GPA is going to need to be higher. So for example, computer science is a highly demanded major, and we have only been able to admit students into computer science if they have a 3.0 or higher GPA, basically a B average or better into that major. Let's go to the next slide. So when the GPA is recalculated at the end of each term, an academic standing is going to be assigned. Good standing means that the GPA is 2.0 or higher. That's where we want all of our students to be. But the first semester that any student's overall GPA falls below 2.0, they will end that semester with the status of first probation. If that occurs, the student will have their next fall or spring semester to raise their overall GPA, or they could face first suspension. If a student is placed on first suspension, they're going to need to sit out through the next fall or spring semester. The vast majority of engineering students are doing very well. However, around 5% are going to end their first semester on first probation. About half of that 5% will heed the warning from their first probation status. They're going to make changes that will allow them to get back to good standing in their next semester. So by the end of their first year, they'll be okay. Their GPA might not be the greatest, but they'll be okay. Some other students out of that 5% are going to think about how much they like engineering, how much they like Virginia Tech, and some of them are going to opt to either change their major to something different, or maybe they'll leave Virginia Tech altogether. That's perfectly fine. But around a third of that 5% are going to end up on first suspension by the end of their first year. They will have struggled in their first 2 semesters. Their GPA is just not going to be where it needs to be, and the university will impose the suspension as a kind of timeout from academics. It's possible to recover after returning from a first suspension, but it can be hard. It's much better if students recognize when they're having problems and they have some support group with their family to honestly talk about what they're experiencing and think about strategies for being successful. Let's go to the next slide. So as officials of the university, Marlena and I have access to all variety of academic information about students. However, we cannot talk to families about students unless we have permission to do so. Student academic information is protected by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA. When for parents or family members to have permission to receive information about a student, they need to have a passcode assigned by that student. If a parent calls myself or Marlena to ask for any information about a student, Marlena or I will ask for that passcode to be provided. And then we'll verify whether it's the correct passcode in the system before we will be able to give out any information about that student. Students can also grant guest access in Hokie Spa that allows a parent to check the system directly rather than having to contact anyone from the university to ask questions about what's going on with their student. Please remember these things if you plan to proactively reach out to anyone from the university to ask questions about your student or seek some sort of discussion about your student's academics. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So before I wrap up my part of this presentation, I want to emphasize some of the ways that we try to support student success at Virginia Tech and in the College of Engineering. There are numerous opportunities for support. We have a counselor from Cook Counseling Center who is embedded with the college. She works exclusively with engineering students. The university also maintains a Student Success Center that provides tutoring support services and other types of academic support. Computer science, which is our largest program, maintains their own tutoring service space, which is located in Torgerson Hall. We have a group called SWAT, SWAT, that stands for Software Assistance Triage. They are also located in Torgerson Hall. Their role is to help with any computer or software needs that students have. So for example, if a student is trying to get a lot of projects done during the semester that require a computer, and that computer begins to have problems or even just goes offline for a while, they can go to SWAT and they can get assistance getting that computer fixed, or they can even sometimes get a loaner computer from SWAT. The Dean of Students office is a good resource if you are having any type of life emergency. I strongly encourage students or parents even to contact them if there is any death in the family or other family tragedy that's going to require a student to take time off from classes. I also want to mention the college's Center for the Enhancement of Engineering Diversity, or CEED, SEED for short. Among their various services, they offer a peer mentoring program that pairs freshman students with upper-level students for mentoring. They also manage our living learning communities, Galileo, Hypatia, and Digerati. If you've had disability accommodations in high school, such as an individualized education plan and IEP, I strongly encourage you to contact the Services for Students with Disabilities office at Virginia Tech and make use of accommodations here. I've seen a lot of students try to forego the use of accommodations in college with mixed results. All accommodations are handled in a discrete fashion and are designed to provide fair learning situations for students who are authorized to have them. The website link shown on this slide will take you to a web page that has links to all of these different resources. Lastly, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed thinking about college and the changes this is going to bring to your life, I just want to say that that's normal and it's perfectly fine. College can be a very up and down experience until you get used to it. In your first year, you may encounter homesickness, loneliness, uncertainty, insecurities and anxieties or depression. You may have been a top student before and find out you're just close to average at Virginia Tech. You might just feel lost in your classes. And I just want to say that it's okay to go through all of this. Looking back at my own college experience, the one lesson I wish I'd learned early is how to ask for help, whether that was academic help, help figuring out how to manage expectations, or just counseling when I was having rough spots in my life. I did not use the resources that were available enough when I was an undergraduate. So what I want to encourage for all of you is to use those resources that are available if you are having any sort of rough spot in your life or your academics. Even though I did fine later on, I could have done better had I been less stubborn about getting advice and looking into resources. It's okay and it's normal to experience any number of problems when you first go off to college, and you can recover from a certain amount of bad grades. But that does become harder if you don't talk to others when you need help. So lastly, I just want to reemphasize that you're now a Hokie. You're part of the Virginia Tech community. We've accepted you because you are qualified to be here, and we do have confidence in you. Thank you for your time. I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Lester. She's the college's director of advising, and she's got a lot of other important information that she needs to go over.
Excellent. Thank you, Dean Thompson. And thank you all so much for joining us today. If you just arrived, student attendance is on your honor. And so we do welcome you to this session as part of our virtual academic advising and course registration process. As part of the orientation and virtual academic advising and course registration process, we have this college level overview session. We also have some question and answer sessions. The requirement for all students to meet with an advisor one-on-one, and then of course registering for classes. So for the remainder of this presentation today, I'm going to walk us through some important key information about orientation and getting started here at the university. So the first is to kind of take us back and look at the timeline of what's been happening within this experience. All students would have received a welcome email from us on May 6th, sometime between May 6th and May 20th. In that email, it would have contained the engineering orientation checklist. That engineering orientation checklist is designed to give you a roadmap of all of the things that you need to have in order to transition to the university. It includes details like setting up your Virginia Tech email, setting up your two-factor authentication device, signing your housing contract, and all of those details. So if you've not found the engineering orientation checklist, I do encourage you to go back on our website. It's also linked out there, and start from the top of that and list and work your way all the way down. There are a lot of things that deadlines have already passed. However, a lot of the resources that are on there are still things that you can accomplish to make sure that you are fully aware of the things that you need to know. Around June 7th, all students received an email from an academic advisor or someone from a department in our college giving you instructions on how to make a mandatory virtual academic advising appointment. Between June 12th and July 26th, we are hosting our one-on-one appointments with students. So we are wrapping up this week with all of our orientation advising appointments. So please make sure that if you are here in this session and you've not met with your advisor, you need to do so immediately. Because that should have already occurred or already be scheduled for this week. As part of what we kind of require within the College of Engineering, besides this session, all students are required to meet with their advisor and, of course, register for classes. And so class registration has been open from June 12th all the way up until the first week of classes. Students could have registered for classes prior to meeting with an advisor. So if you are in this session and you've not registered for classes, I encourage you to go ahead and do so. You need to register for anywhere between 15 and 17 credit hours. And on our orientation website has lots of resources to help support you in that process. But you do want to take action on that this week. While registration is open until the first week of classes, all new students to the university should have their registration finalized by July 26th, which is this week. In addition, we are hosting this session, like I mentioned earlier, and we will have some Q&A sessions. Today is the last session. And as part of those question and answer sessions, we have hosted sessions on the computer requirement, Hokie Shops, which is our Virginia Tech bookstore, peer mentoring through the Center for Enhancement of Engineering Diversity. We hosted a session last week on career support that talked about co-ops, internships, and full-time positions. And then today we will host a session specifically for study abroad. If you missed those sessions, but those are topics that you are interested in learning more about, you can watch the recordings of those on our orientation website. So when you are at the beginning of that website at the top, it'll have kind of the timeline that I just went through. And then toward the middle to the bottom of the page, it's going to have the links to the Zoom recording for today or the Zoom link for today or the recordings if that session has already passed. On that website, you will also see engineering orientation resources. It outlines the orientation checklist that I mentioned, has details about the ALEX placement. It has information about our computer requirement, all the minimum specifications that's necessary for students in the College of Engineering. We also give you instructions on how to self-evaluate your own transfer credit if it's not already showing up on your Hokie Spall account. If you did have AP credits coming into the university, those should already be here. So I will share in just a moment how you can verify that. We also will talk a little bit about something called the AP duplicate drop. So for students who have AP credit expected to come into the university, Virginia Tech will automatically drop you from a class that you have duplicating credit if you accidentally enroll in that class at the university. We always say to accept your advanced placement credits and move on to the next level. On occasion, students will accidentally sign up for the same history class that they have AP credit for. So the registrar's office does a process called the AP duplicate drop, and that removes duplicate registrations from a student's record. That happens all the way up until closer to the start of the semester. On our website, we have information about our check sheets and advising guides. So if you're curious what classes you take your entire time at the university, that is outlined for you, and those documents are there for you to see your particular program of study. You also have information about course registration. So if you are confused on how to actually do registration, there are video tutorials, there's PDF documents, and other resources to help you through that process. We also have information about the change of major process. So if you are admitted as a general engineering student, what you need to do in order to get into one of our degree granting programs here in the College of Engineering. We also have the resources and support section that Dean Thompson mentioned. That's a great resource to bookmark on your websites, to have as a favorite, as something that you go back to pretty often. We have a frequently asked questions specifically dedicated around this orientation onboarding experience. So definitely take a look at those frequently asked questions. If you are feeling a little lost in this process, that's a great starting place to give you kind of an overview of some of the frequently asked questions that families and students typically have. In addition to our orientation website, all students are also added to a Canvas site. Our transfer students, if you're here in the room today, you were added to a College of Engineering Virtual Academic Advising and Course Registration Canvas site that has a lot of information linking out to these resources that I discussed. We also have one specifically for general engineering student that requires you to go through, complete certain quizzes and modules in order to meet with your advisor. The general engineering advisors have opened up all of their availability. So regardless if you've completed the quizzes or not, this week you do have the ability to go in. You got an email about that last Friday, encouraging you to meet with your advisor. You will still be required to go through and do the quizzes and modules, but since the orientation process does conclude this week, we want to make sure that you do get in and meet with your advisor so that you can register for classes as quickly as possible. Students admitted as building instruction in our college also has a Canvas site. It's specifically for building instruction, and you work with your advisor within that particular program. One of the things that I mentioned earlier is kind of AP credits and some of those other things. And so I do want to remind all students to make sure that you send all official high school, college, and university transcripts to the Office of University Admissions. And that admissions office is where all of those new transcripts will come to the university. If you're a transfer student, you do want to send your high school transcripts to Virginia Tech, especially if that's how you earned some sort of foreign language credit. Virginia Tech does require that all students complete a foreign language requirement before you graduate. And a lot of times for transfer students, you earn that in high school, but you weren't required to send your transcripts to the Office of Undergrad Admissions as part of the admissions process. But new students who are first time in college, or if you're, of course, in general engineering or building construction, you are required to do so. Transfers, that's an additional thing that you'll need to add to your list and have those high school transcripts sent to the university, especially if that's how you're earning your foreign language credit. You also want to make sure that you send all of your official score reports, advanced placement, IB, CLEP, Cambridge, or any other types of credits. Those go directly from the institution or the testing agency to Virginia Tech. And so you will be able to send those and note on those testing sites to send those to Virginia Tech. They go to our registrar's office. In order to verify that Virginia Tech has received all of those transcripts and score reports, you can log into Hokie Spa on the grades menu and click transfer and other additional credits. If there are notations on that screen that says send your syllabus to credits@vt.edu, we are needing information from you to send that syllabus from when you took the course to give a little more information to our university to determine how that course is going to evaluate here at the university. If you take no action, it'll stay on your screen as the way it currently displays. So please make sure that you are going into Hokie Spa, verifying that your transcripts, score reports are there and that they're accurate. They do also have an email address on the screen where if there are any errors in your reporting, you can notify that particular office to get that updated. So make sure you are going into Hokie Spa, grades menu, transfer and other additional credit to verify any transfer credits coming in from other four-year institutions, community colleges. If you took dual enrollment in high school, you also need to contact the college that you took those classes through and have them sent to Virginia Tech. Your high school transcript cannot be used to award credits for those classes. You have to contact the original source that those credits come from. There is no way for you to visually see if your high school transcripts have been received, but the Office of Undergrad Admissions will reach out to you if they are missing that requirement. The way that most students are admitted at Virginia Tech is in general engineering. So our first time in college students are admitted, but we do, of course, also admit students as transfers, and we admit students into building instruction. If you are admitted as a general engineering student, that is a program within our college. It's our first year program. It's housed within the Department of Engineering Education. And in order to transition from general engineering into one of our programs, you have to complete a set of classes, GPA requirements, and a minimum credit hours at Virginia Tech to make that transition. At Virginia Tech, across the board, there are two types of degrees. There are what we classify as restricted degrees and non-restricted degrees. Restricted degrees means you have to have certain additional admissions criteria in order to transition into that program. On the screen here, you'll see that there are 13 restricted degrees within the College of Engineering, everything from our aerospace and ocean engineering degree program through our mining engineering program. So students in general engineering, you have to complete the change of major criteria in order to transition into one of those degree programs. We also in our college have a non-restricted degree, which is building instruction. So Office of Undergrad Admissions does admit students directly into building instruction. But if you are in one of our general engineering programs or you're a transfer student in one of our degree granting majors already, one of those restricted programs, the ability to transition into building instruction is quite simple. You are able to apply to change your major into any of our programs university-wide at the end of a fall, end of a spring, or end of a summer term. And so we don't only allow change of majors 3 times a year. And there is specific criteria on our website on that orientation page that has the information on the change of major process. In addition, of course, to your ability to declare your major, get into your major, changing your major, or if you're a transfer student, you're already in one of those programs, I want to give you a recap of kind of how all of the degree programs operate as far as the requirements necessary to earn your degree. And for the engineering degrees here at Virginia Tech, they're comprised of really 4 major categories. The first is something called Pathways to General Education. These are requirements that every single student has to have completed before graduating from the university. You have your degree core, you have your major requirements, and then you might have some electives depending on your program. Across the board, if I take all of the programs we have within the college, we have about 39% of your curriculum is made up of your pathways. 24% is your degree core, 22% is your major courses, and 15% is your electives. So every single student in the entire university will have these kind of categories in order to complete your degree. And on that orientation page, that's where you can reference those unofficial advising guides to show you what your particular intended program requires of you to complete. The reason that I would do this little overview of all of the programs is to also highlight that the credit hours for each program does vary anywhere from 122 credits to 129. In the College of Engineering, that would then require you to complete 15 to 17 credit hours per semester in order to stay on track to graduate within a 4-year time frame or 8 semesters. So please make sure you do work with your advisor to ensure that you are enrolled in 15 to 17 credit hours. We also encourage 15 to 17 credit hours during your first semester at the university so that if you need to drop a class for any reason, you're still able to maintain full-time academic status, which is 12 credit hours at minimum. The unofficial advising guide that I mentioned is a great resource for you. It shows you when classes are typically taught, so fall, spring, summer 1, summer 2, and potentially winter offerings. It also outlines any prerequisites and co-requisite for that particular follow-on course or the courses that you're trying to register for. It outlines also the specific requirements for your entering cohort. So all students who started this summer or fall, you will follow the unofficial advising guide for the entering class of 2024-2025, and it falls under the undergrad catalog of 2024-2025. So those requirements are there for you to be able to see everything that you need in order to earn your degree. It's a couple pages typically on this advising guide. The first page kind of gives you an overview of your pathways to general education courses. Then we go into your degree, core, your major. But toward the end, we also put a roadmap of what classes you typically take each semester in order to maintain on track to graduate with your degree. So definitely check out the unofficial advising guide if you've not already made it to that document for your particular program. Dean Thompson mentioned that your academic advisor is really kind of your first stop for any kind of questions that you might have. You can locate who your academic advisor is on Hokie SPA under your general student information, or also on Navigate. Navigate is our platform for scheduling appointments with your advisor, and all of you have access to make an appointment with your advisor if you've not already done so. You will want to make sure beyond orientation, of course, we're focused on making sure your classes are transferring in appropriately. Do you have AP credits showing? Do they not show? How to send those scores to Virginia Tech and get you enrolled. Our focus is getting you enrolled for your fall semester. In the future, when you meet with your advisor, you'll discuss your academic progress, your grades, how things are going for course registration for the future semesters. If you are trying to include some campus involvement activities, and discuss your academic and career goals. You will be able to make appointments at any point with advisors through that Navigate portal, and that's where you can meet with your advisor either for orientation. All of that is virtual. In the academic semester, you have the option of typically virtual or in-person appointments in all of our programs. But then you also have the ability to email your advisor any questions that you might have. So earlier I mentioned full-time status, and so full-time status is something that you want to make sure that you have in order to be able to live on campus. If you're receiving any kind of financial aid, if you're an NCAA athlete or you're an international student here on an F1 visa, you have to have at least 12 credit hours to be considered a full-time student. And as a reminder, and I'll remind you a couple of times, in the College of Engineering, we typically are going to recommend 15 to 70 credit hours each semester in order to maintain on track for your graduation within 4 years. There are some exceptions to that, which require you to take more than that. There are some cadets who might have up to 19 credit hours in their first semester because you're adding on additional ROTC courses, physical training maybe, or either other military core classes. 19 credit hours is, however, the maximum number of credits any new student can take. So that is the maximum number of credits you can take as a new student at Virginia Tech. So I mentioned in my brief kind of overview summary of orientation that course registration is open. It's been open since June 12th, and it will stay open through the first week of classes. But for a new student, we want you to have all your class registration finalized by the end of this week. And the reason is that currently continuing students at the university do not have access to class registration. So there are more seats available for new students right now. But as soon as next week rolls around, or actually we have a little week between, but on August 5th, all of our continuing students, all of our students who are sophomores, juniors, and seniors, all regain access to registration for classes. So maybe they need to finalize a few things to their schedule, add courses. So we want to make sure that you are utilizing your priority in the registration timeframe right now and enrolling in classes. You can go in Hokie SPA under class registration and schedule menu. It's called course registration schedule menu. You can use the add drop features. There are 2 tools that you can utilize. There's one called Hokie Scheduler, or you can go directly into something called registration add and drop. And that's where you can schedule your classes for the fall semester. I do want to also remind you that there are some courses that might be major and course restricted. So some of our major courses might be specifically only open to certain students in that program. So meaning that only if you're officially enrolled in that major or a set of other criteria are you allowed to take a particular class. So for example, if you're trying to register for a chemistry lab, there might be certain sections of chemistry lab available to general engineering students and other sections reserved to the entire university besides general engineering. And that's a way for us to make sure that students in engineering get the seats they need, but also to make sure that students in particular programs that require that also have the ability to ensure that they enroll in the appropriate classes. You can utilize the timetable classes to search for your classes by term, by pathway subject, course number, course request number, and of course, you can look at the course modality. So if you're curious about, is this an in-person or a virtual class? There are options there for you to be able to see that modality. If you're curious about why you cannot add a particular class, you want to make sure that you do click on the CRN. It's on the far left-hand side of the timetable classes, and you can read the course prereqs. Maybe that's why you can't add the class. You can also see if there are any restrictions. So the majority of students in our college right now, as a first time in college, are under GE or general engineering. So that's the restriction you're going to look for, whether or not it allows GE, or if there's nothing listed, you would be able to enroll in those classes. You can register for classes now, so make sure you are doing that. But first, you need to make sure that you are completing the prepare for registration items before you can start. It won't let you register for classes unless you update your emergency contact information and fill out some of the other prompts within that registration portal. So make sure you are doing that and proceeding to registration. Once you have finalized your class schedule, you always want to kind of verify that you are enrolled in the classes you think that you're enrolled in. And one way to do so is to go into Hokie Spa and click on the Classic Student Schedule view. This is by far the best way to see your entire class schedule in one little screen. It gives you all the information you need to know about this particular class. It tells you what is the special CRN associated with that class or their course reference number. It gives you the course prefix and number, the modality of the class, the title, the grading option. The majority of your classes will be graded on an A through F grading scale. You also have your credit hours, your time, your days, your locations, your instructor, and also it has your final exam term. So if you are trying to make plans after the end of the fall semester to return to your home, or you're trying to take a vacation, you want to make sure that you do verify your final exam schedule before booking any accommodations, any of those flights or additional arrangements, because your final exam doesn't always fall on the last day of your classes. It can be completely different day and time. So you do want to verify on your class schedule your final exams. And you also want to consult with your instructor on the first day of classes or the first week of classes to verify that your exam schedule is as indicated on your class schedule. A couple academic dates and deadlines that you need to be familiar with is that first day of classes or fall semester begins on August 26th. So that's Monday, August 26th. The last day for you to add any new courses to your schedule is going to be August 30th, but the last day for you to drop any courses. So let's say you do enroll in 17 credits and you want to drop a class. You can drop anything all the way up until October 8th, but you can't add anything new after August 30th, which is well within that first week of classes. So I did ask all students to bookmark the academic calendar as part of that engineering orientation checklist item. And so the academic calendar allows you to see all the dates, deadlines that you need for this entire academic year. And so you're able to plan any accommodations that you have as far as going on vacations, or you might need to leave the semester at a certain point, or you're curious about when your breaks are. Definitely make sure you are looking at the academic calendar there. If you're interested in staying informed with engineering news, events, and other updates, we do have a lot of social media presence, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So if you are interested in following the College of Engineering social media pages, you can link out to those from this URL that's on the screen. We also encourage all students to consider following the Engineering Opportunities Facebook page. That's where we post a lot of co-ops, internships, and other opportunities that we get from faculty about research opportunities. So definitely take a look at that. If you're in a particular program already, or you want to make sure you're following your program's specific social media site, that website will take you to the links for all of the College of Engineering social media pages. So if you want to particularly look for the social media for computer science, you'd be able to see that on that page as well. There are a few final reminders that I have for you. The first, of course, is to finalize your class schedule as soon as possible. You want to make sure that you have 15 to 17 credit hours. Definitely, if you are feeling a little lost, start with that orientation website, going through the checklist of items that has all your degree requirements. It has tutorials on how to do class registration as well. But also, when in doubt, feel free to reach out to your academic advisor. Every student has an official assigned academic advisor that you can locate on your Hokie Spa account. All of you, if you're students in the room, you do need to mark your calendar to attend the college session with Dean Thompson and I. We have our friends from the Student Engineers Council there. We're going to do a college session on August 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. This is part of the University Weeks of Welcome. It's for students only. It's going to be in Burris Hall Auditorium, and the date that you attend the college session is based on when you move in to campus. So if you are moving in on the 20th, you'll attend the 21st. And our website for the engineering orientation checklist does outline your specific move-in schedule. If you're a transfer student or you're living off campus, you will attend on the Friday, August 23rd at 9 a.m. in Burris Hall Auditorium. We have a college social for all new students to welcome you back to the university or welcome you to Virginia Tech. All of our departments will have a table set up for you to talk to them about. We'll give free giveaways from our Student Engineers Council. They give a really nice Padfolio, which is really nice to take to career fairs and stuff. And that's going to also be on Friday, August 23rd from 2 to 4 in Goodwin Hall and Goodwin Hall Lawn. And so that again is outlined on that engineering orientation checklist of things that you should bookmark or save the date, and those are outlined for you there. So that concludes all of the things that I wanted to go through today. So what I'll do is I'll open it up to any questions that you may have, but I also want to thank you all so much for being here today. And if you have any questions or concerns, do not hesitate to reach out to us, your academic advisor, to make sure that you do get everything squared away for your beginning here at the university. So thank you all so much. And so what I'll do now is I'll stop our recording and our share from live stream, and then we'll go ahead and answer